Wait, Carl, you probably stacked the deck there for the easy.
Yeah, I think he did.
Turn it upside down.
Okay, let's see. I'll see that Carl for a minute. Just questions for both of you, but I'll let David answer it first, and I'll ask you guys to keep your questions brief because we have a lot of questions. I can't prepare with questions because you never know what you're going to get, but we've got lots of questions today, so hopefully we get through as many as we can. Dave, what is your position on the illegal immigration, the Arizona law, and the federal government's lawsuit, and will you fight to strengthen New York's immigration stance? We started that question a few minutes ago.
Right, well, so, very complicated issues. Washington has laws on the books that they're not enforcing. They're not spending the money on it, they're not protecting the borders. So Arizona's in this bad situation. Mexico's kind of economy has been collapsing, and so people are streaming across the border, and the federal government's simply not doing its job. So what I think has to be done is enforce the laws on the books, fund the border protection. These are critical steps, and we have to have steps that quickly move the undocumented, the illegal immigrants out if they committed crimes, if they're in the country, and move them back. So I'll lay that out. This doesn't solve the problem. The problem's been going on for 30 years, for 50 years really, and so it's going to take, I think, concentrated effort for a period of time protecting the borders in order to reduce the problem.
Okay, Carl.
For New York State, this is probably the biggest problem in this state compared to any other state in the nation, aside from Arizona, New Mexico, and California.
Please speak louder.
In New York State, we've chosen, both in New York City and statewide, our leaders have chosen not to enforce the immigration laws. I will, to the extent allowed by law, enforce the immigration laws. If you think Mr. Aprile, Sheriff Aprile down there in Phoenix is illustration, probably a great poster child, I think he is, okay, for the type of enforcement that we need in New York State. And we're going to follow his conduct, and we're going to do everything in New York to rid ourselves of the immigration, the undocumented alien class that presently is laying on our social welfare system, Medicaid system, and bringing other bad social ills to our communities in the state. It's going to be confrontational with Mr. Bloomberg, who thinks that all of these people should come to New York City. We're going to have some interesting battles over that. But I can assure you that we will enforce the law.
Okay, David, I have a question for you, and then I'll go to another question for Carl. We have a stimulus bill, TARP, healthcare, and now the financial reform safety bill passed. These bills have interweaved a set of regulations and a huge new bureaucracy beholding only to the executive branch, creating a whole now Mandarin class of faceless bureaucrats in Washington, D.C. You're fortunate enough to win one or both of these houses of Congress back. What can we do to reverse this tyranny? You get that question?
Yeah, I got it. So the regulators have been given this huge grant of power by Congress to do anything they want. And so I think you have to think of it almost like the health care bill, that it's a really bad bill. It was written in the dark of the night, and we need to look for ways to fix and undo the damage. They're creating this giant new consumer safety division. Now, if you believe that, I've got a bridge to sell you in New York City. That it's housed in the Fed. It's the worst possible spot to put it because the Fed can't even do its current job, much less grow this new bureaucracy. So I think one by one, you have to reverse and undo the damage. You know, they're already in Washington looking around for whole buildings to lease and to buy in order to house all the regulators that they want to put in them. So I think it just goes to what Carl was saying about New York State. There's a huge amount of excess fat, and you just have to start on day one and say, I'm not funding that, I'm not funding that.
I have a similar question for you. It says, in your answer to a caller on the financial reform and regulation bill passed this month at the phone in town hall meeting on July 27th, you stated that you were in favor of financial regulation legislation. Please explain what you would include in a financial regulation bill.
That's me.
Now, what's the question for you?
Consumer protection is an area of financial regulation that I was addressing at the time. I witnessed people in my family, young people, being taken advantage of, not really comprehending that small print that they send you on those monthly update letters that seem to arrive, and yet after a while, after you've seen enough of them, you just trash them because you're not about to try to read through that ridiculous language. Consumer protection is an important element today. We have young people, we have old people who are being taken advantage by what should be trusted banks and other people involved in the financial industry. We should have better scrutiny over them and how they've been profiteering over the years, okay, taking late fees, and fees for this, and fees for that, and all the other nonsense. They've watered it down somewhat, they've regulated them somewhat today, and hopefully they will continue to tweak those regulations in order to protect the innocent. And in today's world, the gap between those that understand and those that don't understand is a widening gap, okay? We have a great part of our population, especially the elderly, that can't get into this stuff, and they're taking advantage of it constantly. And I plan on doing something about it.
Randy, can I add in?
Sure.
So, you know, this bill, we need strong regulation of financial institutions and banks because there was huge gaps and problems created. But what they did in this new bill, they are going to create a simplified mortgage application, and the deadline for them to create it in Washington is 2 years. So they're going to spend, I'm not kidding, in the bill, 2 years creating a simplified mortgage application. Now, come on. So that's what I'm against. It's 2,300 pages of stuff like that. Yeah. So Carl's exactly right, that we need safety, soundness, consumer protection, but you don't need 2,300 pages to write it. And if you do that 2,300, what did you do? You employed Washington people. You're sucking jobs from New York down to Washington to control everybody else in the country.
You know, the formula is really simple. Don't lie, don't cheat, don't steal.
What would we be able to do with 100 bureaucrats that they wanted to employ writing the simplified version? If we had to, we wouldn't need them.
David, the Declaration of Independence, our founders mentioned 3 of our rights, which they claim are unalienable. Do you agree, and also do you think the federal government has abridged any of these rights? If so, what will you do about it if you are elected?
Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And they are abridging the pursuit of happiness. Remember when that was written, that was a broad concept of freedom. That was a way to express freedom. And they are abridging that every day. Now, as far as life and liberty, one area that they're tinkering with our lives is with the death tax. So we have this crazy situation that Washington created this year, where the tax is 0 this year if you die, and then it's gonna be 55%.
Yeah,
And
right.
who pays for that? Your children, because you're gonna be dead, and so it's coming out of their
Yeah.
family farm, their small business. So I'd say they're tinkering with life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The Constitution was written 20 years later, 76, 89, so 13 years later or so, and it was meant to specify how we could protect ourselves from the federal government so that we would preserve life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And so I think we've allowed ourselves to slide away from the 10th Amendment protections against the federal government. It's dangerous.